My name is Chantel Walkers, and I am 70 years old. 70 years of living, breathing, fighting, surviving. And the last words I expected to hear, the last words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life, were whispered to me by a doctor as they prepped me for heart surgery. He leaned in close, his voice barely audible over the beeping machines, and said, "Be careful. Your daughter wants you dead." I felt my entire world collapse at that moment. Not from the heart condition. Not from the fear of surgery. But from those 6 words. Because nothing, and I mean nothing, hurts more deeply than realizing your own child, the person you raised, protected, sacrificed for, and loved with every fiber of your being, might be trying to end your life. The person whose diapers you changed, whose tears you wiped, whose dreams you nurtured, that person wants you gone. Dead. Erased from existence like you never mattered at all. Before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, before I take you down this dark road that I never thought I'd have to walk, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It helps more people hear stories like mine. Stories that need to be told. Stories that might save someone else from the hell I've been through. Now, let me take you back. Let me take you back to the moment my life as I knew it ended. I woke up in a room I didn't recognize. The walls were a sickly pale yellow, the kind that tries to look cheerful but just feels wrong. Institutional. Cold. The smell hit me next, a mixture of disinfectant, old food, and something else I couldn't quite place. Something that made my stomach turn. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, sluggish, like I was moving through thick water. My head was pounding, my thoughts were cloudy, scattered like puzzle pieces I couldn't fit together. Where was I? How did I get here? I looked around frantically, searching for something familiar, anything that would ground me, give me a clue. But there was nothing. Just sterile furniture, a small window with bars, and that horrible yellow paint mocking me from every wall. I tried to remember. What was the last thing I could recall? I was at home. My home. The house I'd lived in for 43 years. I was watering my garden. I remember the roses were blooming beautifully that week. I remember thinking I needed to prune them back before the summer heat set in. And then, nothing. A blank space where my memory should be. Like someone had taken an eraser and wiped away entire days of my life. Panic started to rise in my chest. I stumbled out of the bed, why was I in a bed, and made my way to the door. My legs felt weak, unsteady. When I pulled the door open, a nurse appeared almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting for me to try to escape. "Mrs. Walkers," she said in that patronizing tone people use when they think you're not all there mentally. "You need to get back into bed. You've had a difficult few days." Difficult few days? My voice came out hoarse, scratchy. What are you talking about? Where am I? How did I get here? She guided me back toward the bed with a firm but gentle hand, the kind of touch you'd use on a confused child. "You're at Meadowbrook Care Facility. You've been here for 2 days now. Your daughter brought you in. You were having some difficulties." 2 days? 2 days? I felt the room spin around me. That was impossible. I was healthy. I was independent. I lived alone, managed my own affairs, drove my own car, paid my own bills. I had no difficulties. I had no reason to be in any kind of facility. "That's not possible," I said, my voice rising despite the fog in my brain. I was fine. I am fine. I don't belong here. Where's my daughter? I need to talk to her right now. The nurse's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something I couldn't quite read. Pity? Discomfort? "Your daughter left instructions that she'd be by to visit soon. She's very busy, you understand. But don't worry, we're taking excellent care of you." Instructions. She left instructions. Like I was a package being delivered, not a human being with rights and autonomy. The fear that had been building in my chest started to transform into something else. Something sharper. Something angrier. I want my phone, I demanded. I want my wallet. I want my things. Where are my belongings? Everything is being kept safe for you, Mrs. Walkers. Now please, you need to rest. The doctor will be there later to check on you. She left before I could protest further, and I heard the distinctive click of a lock. They locked me in. They actually locked me in like I was a prisoner, like I was dangerous, like I had no right to my own freedom. I sat on that bed, in that horrible yellow room, and tried desperately to piece together what had happened. But my mind felt like it was wrapped in cotton, thick and suffocating. I couldn't think clearly. Couldn't focus. And that terrified me more than anything else. Over the next several hours, or maybe it was days, time had lost all meaning in that place. I started to observe. I'm not a stupid woman. I raised 3 children on my own after my husband died. I built a successful business from nothing. I survived poverty, discrimination, and every obstacle life threw at me. And I learned long ago that when something doesn't feel right, you pay attention. The facility wasn't what they claimed it was. Oh, they tried to make it look pleasant enough, with their fake plants and their bland artwork on the walls. But I could see what it really was. This was a memory care unit. A place for people with dementia, Alzheimer's, severe cognitive decline. The other residents I glimpsed in the hallways shuffled aimlessly, their eyes vacant, lost in worlds only they could see. Some called out for people who weren't there. Some didn't seem to recognize their own reflections in the mirrors. But I wasn't like them. I knew exactly who I was. I knew what day it was, or at least, I did before they brought me here. I knew my address, my social security number, my children's names and birthdays. I could recite poetry I'd memorized in high school. I could tell you what I'd eaten for breakfast last Tuesday before this nightmare began. So why was I here? They kept giving me pills. Little paper cups with pills of different colors that they insisted I take. It's for your own good, Mrs. Walkers. Doctor's orders. When I refused, they became insistent. When I continued to refuse, they threatened to have it noted in my chart that I was non-compliant and combative. Combative. Me. A 70-year-old woman who just wanted to know why she was being held against her will. But I learned to play the game. I pretended to take the pills, tucking them under my tongue and spitting them out later when no one was watching. And slowly, painfully slowly, the fog began to lift. The heavy feeling in my limbs started to ease. My thoughts became clearer, sharper. And with that clarity came a horrible, creeping realization. Someone had been drugging me. Someone had put something in my food or my drink before I ended up here. That's why I couldn't remember. That's why my body felt so strange, so not my own. They had chemically subdued me, made me compliant, made me seem confused and helpless so they could justify keeping me locked up like an animal. But who? Who would do this to me? The answer came crashing down on me like a tidal wave, and I almost couldn't breathe from the pain of it. My daughter. My youngest child. My baby girl who I had loved and protected and given everything to. She did this. I discovered the truth piece by piece, like uncovering a photograph that's been buried in dirt. A conversation I overheard between nurses about my daughter's concerns. A comment from an orderly about how sad it is when they lose their homes. A glimpse of paperwork on a desk when a staff member wasn't paying attention. And then the final, devastating confirmation came from the most unexpected source. There was a social worker who visited the facility periodically. Her name was Diane, and unlike the others, she actually looked at me when she spoke. She treated me like a person, not a problem to be managed. During one of her visits, she pulled me aside into a small office. "Mrs. Walkers," she said carefully, "I've been reviewing your file, and some things aren't adding up. Your intake assessment says you have moderate dementia, but every time I talk to you, you're completely lucid. You know where you are, what year it is, you can discuss current events. You don't fit the profile of someone who should be in this facility." I felt tears spring to my eyes, the first time I'd allowed myself to cry since this ordeal began. I've been trying to tell everyone that I don't belong here. I don't have dementia. I don't know how I ended up here, but someone is lying. Diane nodded slowly. "I had a feeling. Mrs. Walkers, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Before you came here, were you having any disputes with family members? Any disagreements about money or property?" "No," I said immediately. Then I stopped. Thought back. Well, my daughter Jessica had asked me for money a few months ago. A substantial amount. She said she had some debts that needed to be paid off urgently, something about her business failing. I told her I couldn't just hand over that kind of money, but I'd be willing to help her work out a payment plan with her creditors. She was angry with me. We had an argument. She said I didn't care about her struggles, that I was selfish for sitting on all that wealth while she suffered. What kind of wealth are we talking about, Mrs. Walkers? I owned my home outright. 43 years of mortgage payments, finally paid off. And I have some land that my husband and I purchased decades ago as an investment. 20 acres outside the city limits. It's appreciated significantly over the years. Together, it's worth close to $800,000. Diane's expression darkened. "Mrs. Walkers, I think you need to see something." She pulled up a website on her computer, typed in an address, and turned the screen toward me. It was a property records search. My property records. And there, in cold, clinical text, was information that made my blood run cold. Both my home and my land had been sold. Transferred to new owners. The sale date was 3 weeks ago, right around the time my memories go blank. That's impossible," I whispered. "I never sold anything. I never signed any papers. This has to be a mistake." "I don't think it's a mistake, Mrs. Walkers. I think it's a fraud. And I think your daughter brought you here to keep you quiet while she liquidated your assets." The room felt like it was tilting. My vision blurred. My daughter, my baby girl, had drugged me, had me wrongfully committed to a memory care facility, claimed I was mentally declining so no one would believe me, and sold my entire estate, everything I'd worked for my entire life, everything that was supposed to be my security in my old age, without my permission or knowledge. She stole my life. Not just my property, my actual life. My freedom. My dignity. My future. "The sale prices," Diane continued, her voice gentle but firm, "they're well below market value. Your home sold for $320,000, it's worth at least $500. The land sold for $280,000, it should have gone for closer to $500 as well." She moved them fast, probably to someone she knew, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. "Mrs. Walkers, I believe your daughter used this money to pay off her debts and probably pocket whatever was left over." The pain in my chest was physical, like someone had reached into my ribcage and squeezed my heart with both hands. This wasn't just theft. This wasn't just fraud. This was a betrayal so profound, so complete, that I didn't have words for it. The person I had carried in my womb for 9 months, the child I had nursed and nurtured and sacrificed for, she had looked at me and seen nothing but an obstacle standing between her and money. She had reduced me, her own mother, to a problem that needed to be eliminated. And she had done it without hesitation, without remorse, with calculated precision. I thought about all the times I had helped her over the years. The college tuition I'd paid. The car I'd bought her when hers broke down. The countless times I'd watched her children so she could work or have a night out. The emotional support when her marriage fell apart. The unconditional love I'd given freely, expecting nothing in return except to be treated with basic human decency. And this was what I got. A locked room in a facility for people with dementia, while she sold everything I owned and pretended I was too far gone to notice or care. What can I do? I asked Diane, my voice breaking. How do I fight this? I have no phone, no money, no access to anything. She's taken everything from me. You fight back, Diane said firmly. Starting right now. I'm going to make some calls. We're going to get you an attorney, we're going to get you an independent medical evaluation, and we're going to get you out of here. But Mrs. Walkers, I need you to be strong. This is going to get ugly. When people realize what she's done, there are going to be consequences. Are you prepared for that? I looked at this woman who barely knew me but was willing to fight for me when my own daughter had tried to bury me alive. And I felt something shift inside me. The grief and pain were still there, they would be there for a long time, maybe forever, but underneath it, something else was growing. Something harder. Something that refused to be a victim. I'm prepared, I said. She thought I was weak. She thought I was helpless. She thought she could dispose of me like garbage. But I am Chantel Walkers, and I have survived things that would have broken lesser people. I will fight this with everything I have. And when I'm done, she will wish she had never been born. The next weeks were a blur of activity. Diane made good on her promise. She contacted legal aid, found an attorney who specialized in elder abuse cases, a fierce woman named Rosa Kenwood who took one look at my situation and said, "We're going to destroy her." They arranged for me to see an independent psychiatrist, someone not affiliated with the facility. Dr. Raymond conducted a thorough evaluation, cognitive tests, memory assessments, psychological screening. After 3 hours, he closed his folder and looked at me with something like anger in his eyes. "Mrs. Walkers, you have no signs of dementia. None. Your cognitive function is completely normal for your age. In fact, you scored above average on several measures. You are sharp, coherent, and fully capable of managing your own affairs. What you do show signs of is recent benzodiazepine use, sedatives that would have made you appear confused and disoriented. Someone has been drugging you. And someone lied extensively to get you committed here." I felt vindication and rage in equal measure. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I wasn't losing my mind. But hearing it confirmed by a medical professional, having documentation that proved what had been done to me, it was both a relief and a fresh wound. Rosa filed emergency motions with the court. She presented Dr. Raymond's evaluation. She presented evidence of the property sales. She presented testimony from Diane about the facility's concerns. She demanded my immediate release and the freezing of all assets related to my former properties. Jessica fought back, of course. She hired her own attorney, some smooth-talking man in an expensive suit who tried to paint me as a confused elderly woman who had simply forgotten that she'd signed over power of attorney to her daughter. He claimed Jessica had been acting in my best interests, protecting me from myself, making difficult decisions that I was no longer capable of making. But Rosa was relentless. She produced phone records showing Jessica had been in contact with a real estate investor known for buying properties below market value. She found bank records showing large deposits into Jessica's account immediately after the property sales. She located the original power of attorney document, the one Jessica claimed I'd signed, and had a handwriting expert testify that the signature was forged. The evidence was overwhelming. Undeniable. Even Jessica's expensive attorney couldn't spin his way out of it. The court hearing was one of the most painful days of my life. I had to sit there in that courtroom and look at my daughter across the room. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She stared at the table in front of her her jaw clenched, her hands folded tightly together. Did she feel any remorse? Any shame? Any recognition of what she'd done to the woman who had given her life? I couldn't tell. And that might have hurt most of all. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the evidence methodically. She asked pointed questions that Jessica's attorney stumbled over. She looked at the medical evaluations, the financial records, the testimony from facility staff who admitted under oath that they'd been instructed to keep me sedated and compliant. And then she spoke, her voice cold and clear. I have seen many cases of elder abuse in my years on the bench, but few as calculated and cruel as this one. Ms. Jessica Walkers, you systematically drugged your mother, forged legal documents, had her wrongfully committed to a care facility, and stole her entire estate, nearly $600,000 in property, for your own financial gain. You did this to the woman who raised you, who loved you, who trusted you. This court finds your actions to be not only criminal but morally reprehensible. She ordered the immediate release of all holds on my assets. She ordered the property sales to be reversed, the buyers would have to be compensated, but the properties would return to my name. She issued a restraining order preventing Jessica from coming within 500 feet of me. And she ordered the case to be forwarded to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. Elder abuse. Fraud. Theft. Forgery. Conspiracy. The charges stacked up like dominoes falling, each one carrying potential prison time. Jessica's face went white. Her attorney tried to argue for leniency, claiming she'd been under financial stress, that she'd made mistakes but never intended to harm me. The judge cut him off. Your client's intentions are irrelevant. She committed serious crimes against a vulnerable person, her own mother. There will be consequences. As they led Jessica out of the courtroom, she finally looked at me. For just a moment, our eyes met. And I saw it then, not remorse, not love, but anger. She was angry at me. Angry that I'd fought back. Angry that I'd exposed her. Angry that she hadn't gotten away with it. That look told me everything I needed to know. My daughter was gone. The little girl I'd raised no longer existed, if she ever really had. In her place was a stranger who felt entitled to take everything from me and was furious that I'd dared to stop her. The facility apologized profusely, of course. They claimed they'd been deceived by Jessica's documentation, that they'd acted in good faith. It was hollow, meaningless. They'd kept me locked up and drugged without thoroughly verifying the claims made about my mental state. They'd treated me like I was less than human because someone else told them I was incompetent. But I was released. Finally, after weeks of captivity, I walked out of that horrible place with Diane and Rosa by my side. The sunshine felt like a blessing on my skin. The air smelled sweet and clean. I was free. But freedom came with a cost. I returned to find my home occupied by strangers who were legally entitled to stay there until the court could fully resolve the property transfer. My land was being developed by an investment company that was fighting the reversal. Everything I owned was tied up in legal battles that would take months or years to fully resolve. I had nowhere to live. No income while my assets were frozen. No family to turn to. My other children were shocked and supportive, but they had their own lives, their own struggles. I ended up in a small apartment that Rosa helped me find, living off the charity of people who believed in my cause. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jessica had tried to put me in a facility because she wanted my money. Now I was actually struggling, actually vulnerable, actually in need of help, because of what she'd done to me. The criminal case moved forward slowly, grinding through the justice system with agonizing patience. Jessica was arrested and released on bail. She had to wear an ankle monitor, couldn't leave the state, couldn't access any funds connected to my estate. Her life fell apart piece by piece. Her remaining creditors came after her when they realized the money she'd used to pay them off was stolen. They sued to recover the funds. Her business collapsed entirely. Her friends disappeared when the news of what she'd done became public. Her own children, my grandchildren, were ashamed and confused, caught between loyalty to their mother and horror at her actions. I felt no satisfaction in watching her destruction. Only a deep, aching sadness. This was my child. No matter what she'd done, no matter how much she'd hurt me, I couldn't simply turn off decades of love. But I also couldn't forgive her. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. The trial, when it finally came, was brutal. The prosecution laid out every detail of Jessica's scheme. They showed how she'd researched sedatives online. How she'd gradually increased doses in my food and drinks over several weeks, making me increasingly foggy and confused. How she'd contacted the facility in advance, setting up my admission. How she'd forged my signature on multiple documents. How she'd arranged the property sales with buyers she'd found specifically because they'd ask no questions and move quickly. It was premeditated. It was calculated. It was done with full knowledge that she was destroying my life. The defense tried to paint Jessica as a desperate woman driven to extremes by financial pressure. They brought up her business failures, her divorce, her mounting debts. They tried to generate sympathy, to suggest that she'd acted out of panic rather than malice. But Rosa destroyed that narrative on cross-examination. She walked Jessica through every step of her plan, forcing her to admit that she'd had time to think, time to stop, time to ask for help in legitimate ways. She'd chosen this path not because she had no other options, but because she wanted the easy way out. She wanted my money, and she didn't care what it cost me. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Jessica was sentenced to 8 years in prison. 8 years for stealing my life, my home, my peace of mind, my sense of safety in the world. It seemed both too much and not nearly enough. As they took her away, she finally broke down. She sobbed, she screamed, she begged me to forgive her, to ask the judge for leniency. She said she was sorry, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she loved me and never meant to hurt me this badly. But I just sat there, silent. Because I knew the truth. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd been caught. She was sorry she had to face consequences. If she'd gotten away with it, if I'd remained locked in that facility, drugged and helpless while she lived off my money, she would never have felt a moment of regret. The properties were eventually returned to me. The legal fees are up a significant portion of their value, but I got them back. I sold them myself this time, properly, for fair market value. I used some of the money to repay everyone who'd helped me, Rosa, Diane, the various advocates and allies who'd fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. The rest I secured in accounts and trusts that no one else can touch. I made sure my will was ironclad, with provisions that if anyone contests it or tries to challenge my mental capacity, they're automatically disinherited. I won't be anyone's victim again. Now, more than a year later, I'm rebuilding my life. It's not the life I had before, that's gone forever, shattered by my daughter's betrayal. But it's mine. I'm in control. I'm safe. But I'm also changed. I don't trust easily anymore. I look at my other children and wonder if they're thinking about my money, calculating what they'll get when I die. I hate that Jessica put that poison in my mind, but I can't seem to shake it. I have nightmares sometimes about waking up back in that yellow room, about the heavy feeling of being drugged, about the helplessness of being trapped while your life is stolen from you. I wake up panicking, checking my surroundings, making sure I'm really home and really free. The pain hasn't gone away. I don't think it ever will. You don't recover from this kind of betrayal. You just learn to live with it, to carry it like a scar that never quite heals. But I also learned something through all of this. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I learned that even when everything is taken from you, Even when the people who should love you most want you gone, you can fight back. You can survive. You can reclaim your dignity and your life. I turned my daughter's crime into her worst nightmare. She thought she was so clever, so careful, that she'd planned everything perfectly. But she underestimated me. She forgot that I raised her, that I taught her everything she knew about being strong and resourceful. She forgot that I had survived worse things than her before she was even born. And now she's the one locked up. She's the one who lost everything. She's the one whose life is destroyed. I wish I could say that gives me peace. I wish I could say I feel victorious. But mostly I just feel sad. Sad for the relationship we'll never have. Sad for the daughter I thought I knew who apparently never existed. Sad for the trust that's been broken not just between us, but between me and the world. If you're watching this and you're elderly, if you have assets that people might want, please protect yourself. Set up legal protections. Have your mental capacity evaluated and documented regularly. Keep your important documents safe. Don't give anyone power of attorney unless you absolutely trust them, and even then, build an oversight and accountability. And if you're being abused, if someone is trying to control you or take advantage of you, please speak up. Tell someone. Anyone. Find a social worker, a lawyer, a trusted friend. Don't let them convince you that you're crazy or confused or that you deserve what's happening to you. You have rights. You have worth. You matter. I'm Chantel Walkers, and I'm 70 years old. My daughter tried to bury me alive, but I clawed my way back to the surface. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And I'm still standing. Thank you for listening to my story. Please share it if you think it might help someone else. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, what you think about what happened to me. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories that need to be told. Because our voices matter. Our experiences matter. And we will not be silenced.